Everyone in the clearing stopped what they were doing. Cleary sparked a single order. Lock the shields! Then, the Titan Lord's army exploded from the labyrinth. I mean, I'd been in fights before, but this was a full-scale battle. The last thing I saw were a dozen Lastagonian giants erupting from the ground, yelling so loudly my ears felt like bursting. They carried shields made from flattened cars, and clubs that were tree trunks with rusty spikes bristling at the end. One of the giants bellowed at the Ares phalanx, smashed it sideways with his club, and the entire cabin was thrown aside, a dozen warriors tossed to the wind like rag dolls. Fire! Beckendorf yelled. The catapult swung into action. Two boulders hurled towards the giants. One deflected off a car shield and with hardly a dent, but the other cost a Lastagonian right in the chest, and the giant went down. Apollo's archers fired a volley, dozens of arrows striking into the thick armor of the giants like porcupine quills. Several found chinks in the armor, and some of the giants vaporized at the touch of celestial bronze. But just when it looked like the Lastagonians were about to get overwhelmed, the next wave surged out of the maze. 30, maybe 40 Dracanae in full battle armor, wielding spears and nets. They dispersed in all directions. Some hit the traps the Festus cabin had laid. One got stuck on the spikes and became an easy target for the archers. Another triggered a tripwire, and pots of Greek fire exploded into green flames, engulfing several of the snake women. But many more kept coming. Argus and Athena's warriors rushed forward to meet them. I saw Annabeth draw a sword and engage one of them. Nearby, Tyson was riding a giant. Somehow he'd managed to climb onto the giant's back and was hitting him on the head with a bronze shield. Bong! 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 Chiron calmly aimed arrow after arrow, taking down a monster with every shot, but more enemies just kept climbing out of the maze. Finally, a hellhound, not Miss O'Leary, leapt out of the tunnel and barreled straight towards the satyrs. Go! Chiron yelled at me. I drew Riptide and charged. I raced across the battlefield. I saw horrible things. As the enemy half-blood was fighting with the son of Dionysus, but it wasn't much of a contest. The enemy stabbed him in the arm and clubbed him over the head with the butt of his sword, and Dionysus' son went down. Another enemy warrior shot flaming arrows into the trees, sending our archers and dryads into a panic. A dozen Dracanae suddenly broke away from the main fight and slithered down the path that led towards the camp, like they knew where they were going. If they got out, they could burn the entire place completely unopposed. The only person anywhere near was Nico D'Angelo. He stabbed Telekine, and his black Stygian blade absorbed the monster's essence, drinking its energy until there was nothing left but dust. Nico! I yelled. He looked where I was pointing, saw the serpent women, and immediately understood. He took a deep breath and held out his black sword. Serve me! He called. The earth trembled. A fissure opened in front of the Dracanae, and a dozen undead warriors crawled from the earth, horrible corpses in military uniforms from all different time periods. U.S. revolutionaries, Roman centurions, Napoleonic cavalry on skeletal horses. As one, they drew their swords and engaged the Dracanae. Nico crumbled to his knees, but I didn't have time to make sure he was okay. I closed on the hellhound, which was now pushing the satyrs back towards the woods. The beast snapped at one satyr who danced out of its way, but then it pounced on another who was too slow. Satyr's tree-bark shield cracked as he fell. Help! Hey! I yelled. The hellhound turned. It snarled at me and leapt. It would have clawed me to pieces, but I fell backwards and my fingers closed around a clay jar, one of Beckendorf's containers of Greek fire. I tossed it into the hellhound's maw, and the creature went up in flames. I scrambled away, breathing heavily. The satyr who'd gotten trampled wasn't moving. I rushed over to check on him, but then I heard Grover's voice. Percy! A forest fire had started. Flames roared within 10 feet of Juniper's tree, and Juniper and Grover were going nuts trying to save it. Grover was playing a rain song on his pipes. Juniper desperately tried to beat out the flames with her green shawl, but it was only making things worse. I ran towards them, jumping past stools, weaving between the legs of giants. The nearest water was a creek half a mile away, but I had to do something. I concentrated. There was a pull in my gut and a roar in my ears. Then a wall of water came rushing through the trees. It doused the fire, Juniper, Grover, and pretty much everything else. Grover blew out a spout of water. Thanks, Percy! No problem! I ran back towards the fight, and Grover and Juniper followed. Grover had a cudgel in his hand, and Juniper held a stick like an old-fashioned whipping switch. She looked really angry, like she was going to tan someone's backside.